Welcome to the City of London. I'm Walid Saqqaf, your host. I'm Walid Saqqaf, the founder of Insureblocks, the leading podcast on blockchain, DLT, and smart contracts in the insurance space. Today, we're going to be interviewing Inga Beale, CEO of Lloyd. When I created Insureblocks, it was very important for me that this is done at a community level, because it's only as a community that we can take blockchain over the line in the insurance space. So I'm very excited to have received so many of you guys to send me your audio questions that you wanted me to ask Inga. She selected 5, and we're going to be playing your questions within that podcast. So let's go in and let's go have a chat with Inga. Hello. Welcome to Insureblocks, your dedicated podcast to blockchain in the insurance industry. I'm Walid Saqqaf, your host. For this week's podcast, we're recording in the heart of the insurance industry at Lloyd's, here in the City of London. To mark this occasion, we're recording the podcast not just in audio format, but also for the first time in video. When I created Insureblocks in March of this year, I not only wanted to educate the insurance industry on the opportunity that blockchain can represent, but I also wanted to invite you all on this journey of discovery by creating a community. Because if blockchain is ever to happen, it can't be done by any one person or organization, but by a global community. That's why I've opened up this podcast for you to ask my special guest your questions directly to her. Our guest today has provided leadership, inspiration, innovation, embracement of all communities independent of their gender, culture, or religious affiliation. In other words, some of our listeners, she's a Princess Leia, leader of the Rebel Alliance. I present to you Inga Beale, CEO of Lloyd.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Inga, thank you so much for joining us today. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into insurance?
Yeah, and I've always worked in insurance. And now it's over 36 years. And sometimes I look back and I think, wow, how have I made it so many years in insurance? But I have. I started out as a trainee underwriter in reinsurance. So those big contracts where you're insuring insurance companies. And I didn't really know what insurance was about. But I started at age 18 and got really hooked. It's a fascinating sector that really helps the society, helps communities. And I didn't appreciate that when I set out on this sort of journey, but it's truly amazing and touches so many people, and particularly when you're in reinsurance or anything that's very global, it's far-reaching.
Excellent.
And can assist wherever you are in the world.
I love your passion. And for those of us who aren't familiar with Lloyd's, could you please give a brief explanation of what it is and what it's saying?
Lloyd's is a little bit different to an insurance company because it's a market. And that means we've got over 80 syndicates in the market who sometimes compete, but also collaborate in sharing the big risks. And that's why, it is a totally unique place. There isn't another market like it in the world. 330 years old this year. And it's always been about innovation. It's always been about enabling human progress. So whenever the first thing was done, ever on the planet as we know it, Lloyd's was there to ensure it, to make sure it was a safe investment for those pioneers that went off and wanted to do the latest new thing, whether it was the satellite going up into space. Lloyd's was there to ensure it.
Brilliant. So at Insureblocks, we have a little tradition here, which is we always ask one of our first questions to our guests, which is to define what is blockchain and how does it work in under 2 minutes. Do you fancy giving it a go?
Well, when I saw that question, I knew you were going to ask me this. I thought 2 minutes, I couldn't possibly talk about blockchain for 2 minutes. I run this market. I grew up in insurance without even a computer being around my desk. So I grew up in a very different world. But the way I understand blockchain, and the why I think it could be very useful for us is there are 2 things. One, it is this sort of shared record, and that's what really appeals. It's a shared record, so it's this, transactions get recorded on it, but in variety of different ledgers. It never can get changed. Everything is traceable and verifiable. And the important thing is, for us, we deal with lots of different partners. So if you think about particularly complex insurance that Lloyd's does, we've got, say a claim comes along, you've got not only the claimant, the policyholder, the customer, you may have a third-party loss adjuster, you may have a lawyer involved, you may have a broker, you may have another broker involved, you've got an underwriter involved, a claims adjuster in a company. I couldn't even list all the parties involved. And the beauty of something like blockchain means there's one transparent record for everybody to look at on everything that's gone and that's happening on a certain transaction, or perhaps it is even a claim.
Brilliant. Thank you. So the insurance industry is in an era of unprecedented opportunities and challenges. From a technology standpoint, you have blockchain, IoT, AI, and robotics. And from a new entrant standpoint, you have a whole array of insurtechs who develop deep customer-centric propositions. You have the giant Amazon, and perhaps in the near future, Chinese firms like Zongyang and Pingyang entering our space. Do you believe Lloyd's is at the risk of, I think you mentioned, sleepwalking into this new world, as you mentioned at the Dubai World Insurance Congress? Or do you believe it's equipped to embrace those opportunities? And if yes, how?
So I was charged by taking this role on to make sure that Lloyd's is part of the future. We have been at the forefront of innovation in insurance products, may not be at the forefront of innovation when it comes to how we do it and how we deliver it. So being very paper-based, the way we process stuff. But we have turned a corner already, and we are absolutely on our way to being part of the new world. Now, a few years ago, I invited a bunch of fintechs to come into Lloyd's. We didn't even have insurtech then. We had fintech. I invited them to come in. I said, come in and disrupt us. Help us disrupt ourselves. They came in and they took one look. They ran away. Because, of course, the startups, the insurtechs, these new ideas, they're very seldom looking at the whole picture, the whole holistic universe, such as what we have at Lloyd's. They want to do little elements of it. So what we're doing from the centre now is making sure that we're tapping in to all of these insurtech, all of these ideas, these new ideas, and we'll have to piece them together to complete the whole picture, the whole puzzle for Lloyd's, and that's how we're going about it. But absolutely, we are ready to be part of that future.
Brilliant. It's great to hear. I believe since 2015, you and Shireen Curry-Hack have both shown a keen interest in blockchain technology. And in 2016, a London Tom POC was built, and now a major consultation is being run by them to see how blockchain can be used. Do you find innovating and bringing change within an organization as Lloyd's sometimes challenging? And if yes, why?
It is challenging, and change anywhere where things are going well is going to always be a challenge. I'm, though, a person who loves change. I'm the sort of person who can't even bear to wake up at the same time every morning. So I have to set my alarm clock or my watch to wake me up at different times every morning because I don't like routine. So I am at one end of the spectrum of wanting this change, but I know that I am also disrupting people's lives. Making change happen can feel very threatening. People wonder what impact it will have on their jobs. Of course they do. So it has been extremely challenging in Lloyd's because we've got thousands of people just around the physical Lloyd's building in the City of London. We've got 34,000 people somehow engaged in this market.
Wow. That's
a lot of people to bring along with you on a journey that I might be passionate about and Shireen might be passionate about, but they're saying, well, what does this mean for me? So it's extremely challenging. And also because it's not one company. I can't come in as the CEO and tell everybody what to do. I've got to cajole them, excite them. And that's what we've been doing. So it's been very, very challenging, but totally satisfying.
Great, thank you. So as you know, there has been numerous POCs and pilots done on blockchain in the insurance industry. And these are valuable, but fundamentally timid steps when you compare to the £1.7 billion and dollars that is annually invested by the financial industry in blockchain technology. Drawing from your own experience here at Lloyd's, why do you believe that's the case? Do we only move forward when faced with a crisis?
Crisis will always make change happen. And I've been in some roles where I've gone in to fix things and save things. So when things are going well, it's extremely challenging. But it's also the unknown. Blockchain is pretty scary. 30 years ago, I just started to understand what a spreadsheet was. 30 years ago. Now, I'm quite into a bit of tech. And I remember in the 90s, for the first time, I think pretty much for the first time in the London market anyway, outsourcing to India processing of catastrophe modelling. Right? Now, this was pretty groundbreaking. People couldn't understand how they'd been doing something in one way, and a lot of that was in their head. And now suddenly we were going to use technology and other people to do what they thought they were the masters of. And I think this is one of the challenges with blockchain, and I know there's been some great trials and initiatives going on right now about, well, let's use it in reinsurance because that's a very finite group. We're speaking with only professional insurers or reinsurers, so surely we can all get our heads around this. But even that has proved challenging. Now, one of the things I thought of was if we really focus on the customer and think about an experience for them, that's probably the best way to go about doing any major change. So the thing I get most excited about at the moment that we're doing is claims. So the next piece, the piece of the TOM, the London Market Target Operating Model work we're doing, is going to be about claims. And that's where I think we should get excited because it's going to involve the customer. And we have to think about how we can deliver that core product of paying a claim, how we can deliver that quicker, faster, in a transparent way and satisfy the customer. So maybe there's something there if you put your heart into it and you just think about delivering for the customer.
It's interesting you mentioned that because one of the issues that I hear a lot in the insurance industry is that it's not very customer centric. You know, our definition of who the customer kind of varies. Is it the broker? Is it the underwriter? Is it the insured? There's so many different kind of levels. But I completely take on board your point regarding claims. We did a podcast where AXA has launched a flag delay policy called Fizzy, and we interviewed our Laurent Benichou on it. And he was one of the profound statements he made is that insureds don't necessarily have to trust AXA anymore. They just need to trust the code. That if they're in a situation where a claim is to happen, it is automatically done by the code on their behalf, and they get the money by the time they land. That is a revolutionary kind of approach, I think.
Just on the customer.
Yes.
A customer, providing you need paying customers, a customer's got to have money to spend on something. That, to me, if you stick to that principle, that quite clearly rules out anyone who's an intermediary who doesn't have any money to pay you for a product. So it can be quite clear to define a customer. A customer has to want to pay for something.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And of course, depending on what you're delivering, your customer could be different things. But they have got to be the one with the money and they then have willingness to buy something.
Exactly. Thank you. Lloyd is pushing through a major initiative at the moment called PPL, the Placing Platform Limited. Could you tell us a little bit about it and how does it fit in a blockchain world, or does it not fit?
It could well fit. Now, PPL is electronic placing, so we're fundamentally replacing the paper with an electronic record that's then fully auditable, and it's it can be real time. Confirmation of cover for the client and all sorts of things. So I think it's really, really exciting. Blockchain could well be utilised in the future, but when we started on this, we didn't really talk about blockchain. It was a bit too scary, and we've used a product that was already available. Doesn't mean to say, though, at any moment we might need to shift up a gear, we might need to start looking at different technologies, and blockchain may well be one of the solutions to this actual placement of the risk, particularly in the Lloyd's market or the broader London market, because it's a subscription market, which means we've got many underwriters on exactly the same piece of business, they're just sharing it. So that immediately lends itself to some sort of blockchain technology where you've got this sort of shared ledger approach.
Of course. So, like yourself, we at Insureblocks are great believers in the importance of diversity. As a father of mixed origin with two little daughters, I was very concerned by the lack of diversity in the insurance industry, that I actually created an episode on Insureblocks on this very issue, along with Ryan Rugg from R3 and Madeline Bailey from MS Amlin. Now, under your leadership, Lloyd's has made great progress on this issue with the Inclusion at Lloyd's initiative. How much more do you believe it can go to ensure Lloyd's is an attractive, globally relevant, and inclusive sector moving forward?
We have had tremendous success since Inclusion at Lloyd's was born nearly 5 years ago. It opened up conversations that had never taken place before. It has given people the ability to address issues that they were perhaps too scared to address before, and it's opened people's eyes to the issues that we're faced with. The business case, put that to one side. The business case is, there is so much proof around it, the need to have diverse teams, diverse thought, if you're going to be successful in the innovation space, if you're going into new markets. We don't need to bang on about that anymore. This is much more about having inclusive workplaces where everybody feels respected, valued, whoever they are, whatever their background, wherever they come from. And we have made tremendous progress. The Dive In Festival, which some people may have heard of, is our celebration of diversity and inclusion. It's in its 4th year this year. This year is all about taking action. And what I mean by that is up to every single one of us to think about what we can do. Is it to include somebody in a conversation? Is it to address or call out bad or inappropriate behaviour? Is it to challenge our policies and processes and procedures at work? Is it to think differently and try and put yourself in someone else's shoes? There are so many things that each and every one of us can do. And that's what I'm hoping will happen. It has to be led from the top as well. So we've spent a lot of time engaging with the CEOs, with the senior folk, to make sure that they understand the importance of it. And there's nothing like people sharing their real life experiences to get the impact of the workplace, perhaps negative things that have happened in the workplace, over to people who haven't experienced it. And that's what we've been doing, been sharing, been talking. And I'm convinced we've got a long way to go, but we've got such great momentum, it's just going to flourish. That's
brilliant. I mean, I completely agree. It's down to every single one of us. I mean, I don't participate anymore at conferences if on the panel it's not diverse, It's down to us. So as I mentioned earlier on, blockchain is about community. So I've got a set of questions that we've received from participants who listen to the podcast. I'm going to start playing a few of them. Right. So the first question is from Tom Davies at MARSH. Let me play that now.
Hi, Inga and Walid. This is Tom Davies from MARSH Energy. And Inga, I'm wondering, what has your experience as CEO of Lloyd's taught you about transforming an industry, and how will this guide you in the future?
Yeah. So I've had some transformation jobs before, but they haven't been at this sort of scale, and they haven't been at the complexity, because Lloyd's has so many different stakeholders, because it's a market. And the other thing is, I'm not the CEO of a company, so I can't tell people what to do. But we're having great success. But one of the things that I have learned, and I think I will take this wherever I go next, is about patience and bringing people with you. I've never had to do so much consultation and engagement with people, listening in my life. And what's happened now is we've done a lot of that, and it's, we've got to a tipping point, and now people want more and more and more. But first of all, we just took our time, so the patience was absolutely out there. And also the thing I've learned is just communicate. I mean, I always knew this, but communicate more and more and more and more and more. You never, ever can communicate enough. And I frequently will meet people who might just be working around the corner from Lloyd's, and they don't know about Tom or PPL. And I'm thinking, how can you know about it? I've been talking about it nearly every conversation. But they haven't.
Yes.
And so things that I'm still learning, but it's incredibly challenging when you've got to influence and cajole. But really, if you can sell an exciting story and get people involved so that they're building their own future, they surely will then get excited.
Brilliant, thank you. So the second question is from Georgia Gough from Paragon Brokers.
Carriers seem to be coming to terms.
Oops, sorry.
Georgia Gough, Paragon Brokers. Hi, Inga. The US and European carriers seem to be coming to terms with the commercial need for financial and professional crypto insurance products. Are Lloyd's ready to support this growth market? Can we expect to see increased levels of enthusiasm towards Lloyd's insurers considering this space?
For sure. In fact, anyone who's just been reading some of the headlines recently, Lloyd's has been in the news,
Yes.
insuring it. We got rather cold feet a few years ago, I must admit, because we didn't really understand what cryptocurrency, how reputable it was going to be. Was it really going to solve people's problems? Was it safe? Did the banks like it? What was going on with it? So we did get a bit nervous a few years ago, and we told our underwriters to say, please, be very wary, very cautious. But I think we've moved on a lot since then. And when I hear about some of the banks in some of the markets around the world who are very known to be at the forefront of leading in finance, and they're saying, oh, this is the way to go, we might have to create our own so that we know it's safe. But we've got mainstream names now talking about it and getting involved, and the whole world is moving to sort of digital, virtual everything. So it is time, and you will definitely see Lloyd's being I think more and more part of that.
That's brilliant. I mean, as you correctly point out, it is about working in consortium with the banks. It is an educational journey. I mean, if we remember, Bitcoin launched only in 2009. So it does take time for all of us to get on board. So the third question I've got is from Natalia Zorowski from Premfina.
There's room for PPL.
Hi, Inga. Natalia from Premfina. According to Insurance Business UK, PPL is now used on 16% of policies written ever since February, a significant surge in the last couple of years since the platform has been introduced. What do you feel is the reason for the sudden surge, and do you feel there's room for PPL in a possible future blockchain world?
Well, PPL was launched line by line, sort of product by product. So when we first launched it, we only went live with terrorism.
Okay.
Because it was a very finite community of brokers, finite community of underwriters. So it was felt to be safe. And then we've launched new products every month or maybe a few months. So now basically we've got nearly all the products or, the policies, the lines of business that underwriters do in Lloyd's and the broader London market. There are some gaps such as reinsurance treaty we want to bring online. And there are maybe some other very, very small lines. But fundamentally, we did it in a phased way. So there was no way we would have got the same level of adoption at the beginning because it was only offered for certain lines of business. So we've got most of the lines on there. And then importantly, we mandated, or I went out and told the market we were going to mandate that they had to start using it. And we've set targets. The second quarter of 2018 target was to reach 10%. We've exceeded that at over 16%. Great. So I am absolutely thrilled. And I've personally written to all the syndicates in the top 10. I'm so proud of them. I mean, I just think it's amazing. Then we're upping it. So the next quarter we want 20%. By the end of the year, we're hoping for 30%. So fingers crossed that we can get there. I think we've got a lot of support. We've got lots of smart people working on it. And people have realised it's the way to go. PPL, we know it's got its faults. We know we need to keep modernising. We know we need to keep on our toes. Blockchain may well be used in that placement process in the coming years. Who knows?
Excellent, thank you. So the fourth question is actually from an intern at Willis Towers Watson. His name is Rahual Mathur.
Hi Inga, my question is, given that human interaction is so central to the Lloyd's value proposition, do you feel that PPL is taking away from what differentiates Lloyd's from other providers of risk capital? And do you see a future where Lloyd's becomes a fully electronic platform? Thank you.
There is no doubt we have got to become more digital. Absolutely no doubt about it. And there will be a whole host of products that can just be traded electronically, placed and accepted electronically. There is no doubt about it. But the essence of Lloyd's is its people. Mm-hmm. And these relationships, these trusted relationships, the interaction, particularly when you're doing something brand new, and the Lloyd's underwriters are empowered to make decisions about these things. This is the most fascinating thing about this market. Those conversations will still happen, and the chances are they will be physically face-to-face. More and more might be done screen-wise face-to-face, but certainly there was going to be a physical presence always. And in fact, one example, in the Netherlands, they had a bourse, an insurance bourse, that they wanted to digitize. And they didn't think there was any way of doing it without closing the whole thing down. So they closed it all down, sent everybody to their offices, said, you're all going to electronic, which is what they did. Guess what happened? Over the next couple of years, everyone said, we need a physical place. We've got to meet each other. This is not working. So they've reopened, but in a totally different modern format. So that's what we're doing, except we're not doing the big bang. We're not closing. We're keeping everything going as it is. But undoubtedly, the underwriting room, in 3 years' time, 5 years' time, will look different, but it will still contain people. Those relationships and those discussions and those negotiations are at the heart of what makes us successful. And Lloyd's, that cluster effect all around Lloyd's in the City of London, is magic that you can find nowhere else in the world.
Excellent, thank you. So the fifth and final question I've got for you is from Dante Disparte in the US. He's the CEO of a brokerage firm called Risk Cooperative.
Hi, Inga. This is Dante with Risk Cooperative. As a champion for diversity and inclusion efforts in the risk and insurance industry, with you stepping down at Lloyd's, what work can we carry forward to keep your legacy alive?
Well, I'm so pleased that he's taking the positive side of this. He wants to keep it alive. And I know that there are thousands and thousands of people that want to keep this alive. It will stay alive. There are so many committed people. The Dive In Festival, this celebration of diversity and inclusion across the entire insurance sector, and remember, this is the entire insurance sector we've got engaged here. No other sector has done it. We've got life assurers involved, we've got brokers, we've got consulting firms, lawyers, never mind all of the insurance carriers. There is such momentum. We're in over 50 cities this year. We're in 27 countries. We've even got a gender-based event or gender-focused event happening in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
When we did our first one, I could not have dreamt of this.
Yeah,
it
no,
has
neither would I.
exceeded my wildest expectations. And it's because our sector is full of fabulous people. And it is a people business. And I know that we need this because it's the only way we're going to make sure that insurance is around and is relevant and seen as modern and dynamic and people want to come and work here, is if we focus on this diversity and make sure we're totally inclusive. And I know there are enough of you out there to keep it going.
Definitely. I know all of us in Insureblocks will definitely do our bit as best as we can. So I'm going to thank you very much, Inga, for your fascinating insights and views. We're very sad to hear you'll be leaving Lloyd's shortly, and we wish you the best of luck with your next endeavor. So this wraps up this Insureblocks podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you like what you've heard this week, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. These reviews really make a huge difference. Inga, thank you again. It was a real pleasure having you, and we hope to invite you back on Insureblocks in the near future.
Yeah. Well, good luck with all of this. What a great, innovative idea. And I wish you much success, and I really hope we get to meet again.
Thank you.
We've just interviewed Inga Beale. I am so excited about how it went, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. As I said at the beginning of the video, Insureblocks is all about building a community to get blockchain at the end of the finishing line in the insurance space. So with that in mind, I've created a group called Insureblocks Community at slack.com, where there's already a bunch of people discussing about blockchain in the insurance space, sharing their experience, sharing what they think is a potential and what could be some of the challenges they would face. I would love for you guys to join, to add your voice, to add your unique thoughts to it so we can all push it forward across the finishing line. So I'm going to put a link below in the description so that you can join us when you're ready. Thank you so much, guys. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Cheers.